Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Today we've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. The heat in Baghdad that day was relentless, the kind that clung to your skin no matter how much water you drank. The city was a patchwork of bombed-out buildings, rubble-strewn streets, and the occasional glimpse of life. A child peeking from behind a curtain, an old man sweeping his stoop. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the calm before the storm. "Keep your heads on a swivel," I said, gripping my M4 tightly. "Intel says this sector's been hot the past few days. Hotter than this damn sun," Private Carter muttered, earning a few nervous chuckles. "Stay sharp, Carter," Corporal Jenkins said, his tone serious. "These streets eat rookies for breakfast." Then it happened. 1 second, we were moving in formation, scanning windows and alleys. The next, a single shot rang out, shattering the tense silence. Private Nelson hit the ground, blood pooling beneath him. "Sniper!" I shouted, diving behind a burnt-out car. "Find that shooter!" Bullets rained down, ricocheting off concrete and tearing through the air. My men scrambled for cover, shouting over the chaos. "Where?" Jenkins yelled, panic creeping into his voice. "Top floor, 3 o'clock. Specialist Decker pointed to a partially collapsed building. "Decker, take him out," I ordered, laying down suppressing fire. Decker fired a burst toward the sniper's perch, but the enemy was smart, using shadows and rubble for cover. Before we could reposition, things went from bad to worse. The first RPG struck with a deafening boom, blasting apart a wall and sending debris flying. "RPG!" someone screamed. "Get down!" I roared, dragging Carter behind a pile of rubble as another RPG slammed into a nearby truck, turning it into a fireball. The heat singed my face, the shockwave rattling my bones. "Sergeant, they're flanking us," Jenkins called out, barely audible over the gunfire and explosions. I peeked around the corner. Dozens of militants were pouring out of alleys and doorways, AK-47s blazing. "We're pinned down," Carter shouted, his face pale. "No, we're not," I growled. "We're Marines. Hold the damn line." We fired back with everything we had, but for every militant we dropped, more took their place. The RPG fire was relentless, hammering against our resolve. Then they got too close. "Jenkins, cover me," I shouted, slinging my rifle over my shoulder and drawing my knife. "Sarge, are you crazy?" Jenkins yelled, firing wildly at the advancing enemy. "Just keep them off me." I charged into the fray, adrenaline pumping like a firestorm. The first militant swung his rifle at me like a club. I ducked and drove my knife into his ribs. He gurgled, collapsing as I yanked the blade free. Another came at me with a machete, screaming in Arabic. I sidestepped and slammed the butt of a stolen AK into his face, shattering his nose before slitting his throat. The fight became a blur. I found myself in an alley, surrounded by 3 militants. One lunged at me with a crowbar. I parried with my rifle and drove my knife into his chest. Another tried to flank me. I spun and shot him point-blank with my pistol. The third hesitated, his AK trembling in his hands. "Don't do it," I warned, my voice low and dangerous. He ignored me, raising his weapon. I didn't hesitate. 1 shot to the head, and he was down. Back on the main street, my team held their ground. Jenkins and Decker had taken out the sniper, and the rest of the squad was mowing down the enemy with precision. The militants realized they couldn't overwhelm us. They began to retreat, dragging their wounded and leaving their dead. "That's right. Run!" Jenkins shouted, firing a few parting shots. I staggered back to my team, my body screaming in pain. That's when I realized I'd been hit. 5 times. 2 rounds had been stopped by my vest. One had torn through my side, another through my thigh, and a graze had opened up my left arm. "Sergeant, you're bleeding," Carter exclaimed, his face pale. "I'm fine," I lied, gritting my teeth. "Just a scratch." By the time reinforcements arrived, the street was a war zone. Bodies littered the ground, 35 enemy combatants dead. But the cost was high. 5 of my men were gone. I collapsed onto the ground, the adrenaline fading. Jenkins knelt beside me, pressing his hands to my side to stem the bleeding. "You did good, Sarge," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We all did," I replied, my vision blurring. Then everything went dark. I woke up 2 days later in a military hospital, barely alive. The doctors told me I'd lost a kidney and most of my liver. My career as a Marine was over. They awarded me a Silver Star for my actions that day, but no medal could erase the guilt of losing my men. Their faces haunted me, a constant reminder of the price we'd paid. When I came back home, I thought I was ready to start over. The world felt different, quieter, slower. The chaos of Baghdad had faded into the rearview mirror, but its shadows still lingered in my mind. Maria greeted me at the airport with a smile that could light up the darkest night. She looked as beautiful as the day I married her. 10 years together, and she still made my heart skip a beat. "I've missed you," she whispered as we embraced. "I missed you more," I replied, holding her close, feeling her warmth for the first time in months. She kissed me, tears in her eyes. "You're finally home. No more deployments. No more worrying every night." "No more worrying," I promised. Settling back into civilian life wasn't easy, but I landed a job as the head of security at a local firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady work. The routine gave me something to focus on, something to keep me grounded. Maria was doing well in her career, too. She worked as a marketing consultant at an advertising firm, always coming up with ideas that left her clients impressed. I was proud of her, but her job kept her busy, sometimes too busy. One evening, after dinner, I decided to have the conversation I had been putting off since I got back. "Maria," I started, sitting across from her at the kitchen table. She was scrolling through emails on her phone, but she looked up when she heard my tone. "Yeah, I've been thinking, I'm not going overseas anymore. I'm here for good. Maybe it's time we think about starting a family." She set her phone down, her expression unreadable. "A family?" "Yeah." I tried to sound casual, though my heart was pounding. "We've been married 10 years. I know things have been hectic, but I think we're ready." "I'm ready." Maria leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "Nathan, I don't know. I mean, it's a big decision." "I know," I said gently. "I'm not saying it has to happen tomorrow. I just want us to think about it. We're not getting any younger, and I want to be the kind of dad who can run around with his kids without wheezing like an old man." That got a small smile out of her, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'll think about it," she said finally, standing up and picking up her plate. "But can we not rush into this?" "Of course," I replied, watching her retreat to the sink. First, I thought everything was fine. Maria seemed normal, busy with work as always, but normal. We still had our nightly dinners, still laughed over old inside jokes, still shared the same bed. But over the weeks that followed, something shifted. She started coming home later than usual, saying she had to stay late for meetings or meet with clients. She'd sit on the couch, lost in her phone or laptop, even when we were supposed to be spending time together. Our conversations became shorter, more surface level. "Maria," I said one evening as she sat at the dining table, typing furiously on her laptop, "do you want to watch that movie we talked about? You know, the one with that spy you like?" She didn't even look up. "I can't tonight, Nathan. I have a deadline tomorrow." "You've been working late a lot," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Is everything okay at work?" "Yeah, everything's fine," she replied quickly. Almost too quickly. "Just busy, that's all." I nodded, though her words didn't sit right with me. "All right, let me know if you need anything." "Thanks," she said, finally glancing up to give me a tired smile. But that smile felt distant, like it wasn't really meant for me. Maria was pulling away, and I could feel it. I didn't know why, but the warmth that used to fill our home was slowly being replaced by something colder. I told myself not to overthink it, that maybe it was just a rough patch. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then one night, she came home past 11, heels clicking against the hardwood floor. I was sitting in the living room, pretending to read a book, though I hadn't turned a page in nearly 20 minutes. "Hey," I said, my voice even. "Hey," she replied, setting her purse down on the kitchen counter. "You're late again," I said, closing the book and placing it on the coffee table. Maria sighed, rubbing her temples. "I told you, Nathan, there's a lot going on at work right now." "Work? Huh," I said, my tone sharper than I intended. "And the weekly girls' nights? Those part of the work schedule too?" She turned to face me, her eyes narrowing. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said, standing up, "you're putting a hell of a lot more effort into everything else than into us." Maria threw her hands in the air. "Oh, here we go again. Do you know how exhausting it is to come home after a long day and get interrogated like this?" "Exhausting?" I shot back. "You're not the only one who's tired, Maria. You think it's easy for me? Sitting here every night, wondering what happened to us? Wondering why you don't even look at me the same way anymore." Her expression softened for a brief moment, but then it hardened again. "Nathan, you're overthinking everything. I'm just busy. That's all it is." I stared at her, searching for something in her face that would reassure me, but all I saw was a wall I couldn't break through. "Is there something else, Maria? Something you're not telling me?" "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice defensive. "You know damn well what I'm talking about," I said, taking a step closer. "If you're having an affair, just tell me now. Don't make me find out some other way. Don't make me—" Before I could finish, Maria grabbed the glass of water she just poured and hurled it at me. It smashed against the wall behind me, shards scattering across the floor. "How dare you?" she screamed, her voice shaking. "How dare you accuse me of something like that? I'm your wife, Nathan. I've been loyal to you every single day of our marriage. And this is how you repay me? Then tell me what's going on." I yelled back, my own anger boiling over. "Tell me why you're so distant. If it's not an affair, then what the hell is it?" Maria stood there, breathing hard, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. Finally, she shook her head, her voice quieter now, but no less angry. "There's nothing going on, Nathan. Nothing." But I didn't believe her, and I was going to find out the truth. The silence between Maria and me grew heavier with each passing day. We barely spoke, exchanging only the necessary words. It wasn't a marriage anymore. It was two people coexisting under the same roof, each pretending the other didn't exist. Then, Maria started going out twice a week instead of once. She claimed it was girls' night, but I knew better. The smell of perfume that wasn't hers. The faint trace of wine on her breath. The distant look in her eyes when she returned home. I couldn't ignore it any longer. One night, after she left for another supposed girls' night, I picked up the phone and called Jake. Jake had been a private investigator for years. We served together in the military, and I trusted him with my life. If there was anyone who could get me the truth, it was him. "Jake," I said when he answered, keeping my voice steady. "I need a favor." "What's going on, Nate?" he asked, his voice gruff but concerned. "It's Maria," I admitted. "Something's not right. I need you to keep an eye on her. Follow her, see where she goes. I need to know." Jake was silent for a moment before replying. "You sure about this?" "I'm sure." "All right," he sighed. "I'll get started." 3 days later, my phone rang. Jake's name flashed across the screen, and my stomach clenched. I already knew the news wasn't going to be good. "Talk to me," I said as I answered. Jake sighed on the other end. "You're not gonna like this, man." My grip on the phone tightened. "Just tell me." "Maria's been going to bars and clubs," he began, his tone cautious. "She's not exactly sneaking around, but she's not acting like a married woman either. A lot of touching, a lot of dancing. Some heavy petting in cars afterward." I felt my blood pressure spike. "With who?" "There's one guy in particular. Brian." The name meant nothing to me, but the way Jake said it told me all I needed to know. "Who the hell is Brian?" I growled. "He works with Maria," Jake explained. "Married, 2 kids, and a reputation as a womanizer. He got moved to your city from Philly after a husband found out he was sleeping with his wife." My jaw clenched. "And Maria?" "She's not exactly pushing him away," Jake admitted. "They've been spotted together a few times after work. Nothing outright yet, but it's close. If it keeps up, it's only a matter of time. I paced the living room, my fists clenched. Keep an eye on them. If she crosses the line, I want proof. Got it. 3 days later, Jake called again. Nate, he said, his voice low. We've got a situation. My stomach turned. What kind of situation? Maria's in a car with Brian. Clothes are off. The words hit me like a gut punch. I gripped the phone tighter, my breathing sharp and uneven. You sure? I'm looking right at them, Jake said grimly. It's clear as day. What do you want me to do? I forced myself to think. Get the video. Pictures. I want every angle. You got it. Minutes passed like hours before Jake sent me the photos and videos. I stared at the screen, my vision narrowing in fury. There it was, undeniable proof of Maria's betrayal. The woman I had given my life to was throwing it all away for a piece of trash like Brian. I didn't smash my phone, though I wanted to. I didn't punch the wall. Instead, I grabbed it and called Kelly, the divorce lawyer Jake had recommended. Nathan, Kelly answered smoothly. How can I help you tonight? I need you to start the process, I said, my voice cold and flat. What process? She asked cautiously. Divorce, I said bluntly. I just sent you a video and some images. That's all the proof you need. There was a pause. Nathan, are you sure about this? This is a big step. I let out a bitter laugh. Kelly, my wife is in a car with another man, half naked. There's nothing left to save. I understand, she said gently. I'll get started on the paperwork. Anything specific you want to include? I don't give a damn about my assets, I said firmly. She earns more than me anyway, and if she tries to take anything, she'll lose big time. I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand. This wasn't just anger anymore. It was clarity. The clock had ticked past midnight when I heard the car pull up outside. Maria fumbled with the lock, finally stepping in, half drunk, her makeup smeared, reeking of cheap perfume and whiskey. I stood by the door, arms crossed. Maria, sit down. She squinted at me, swaying slightly. What's your problem, Nate? It's late. I'm tired. Can we do this tomorrow? No, I pulled out a chair at the dining table. Sit. Now. She rolled her eyes but complied, slumping into the chair. I placed a cup of coffee in front of her and sat across the table, staring her down. Drink, I ordered. She snorted but took a sip, grimacing. God, you're so dramatic. I leaned forward, my eyes boring into hers. I know about Brian. Her head snapped up, panic flickering in her eyes before she masked it with a scoff. What the hell are you talking about? Don't play dumb, I said, my voice low but menacing. I have video, pictures. You in a car with him, half-dressed, acting like a damn fool. Her face went pale, but she doubled down. That's not what it looks like, she snapped. You're spying on me now? What kind of husband does that? I slammed my hand on the table, making the coffee cup rattle. Don't you dare try to twist this around, Maria. I trusted you, and this is how you repay me. She stood abruptly, pointing a shaky finger at me. You're unbelievable, Nathan, always trying to control me, acting like you own me. I rose to my feet, towering over her. Control you? I've done nothing but respect and love you. But respect is a two-way street, and you've been driving the wrong damn way for months. She slapped me. The sting barely registered. What did register was the sheer audacity. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, the doorbell rang. I turned to answer it, Maria trailing behind me. When I opened the door, there stood Brian. The bastard had a smug grin on his face. Brian stood at my doorstep, a smug grin plastered across his face. He wasn't just bold, he was downright arrogant. Without so much as a glance my way, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small bundle of fabric. Red lace panties. Maria's. You forgot these, he said, tossing them toward her like a trophy. By the way, I had an amazing night. I didn't hesitate. My fist connected with his jaw in a sickening crunch. Brian staggered back, his expression shifting from cocky to dazed in an instant. Maria screamed as he collapsed onto the porch, groaning in pain. Nathan, Stop! She shrieked, rushing to his side. What the hell is wrong with you? I took a deep breath, rolling my shoulders to keep my rage in check. Wrong with me? Are you seriously asking me that right now? I glared at her, then down at Brian, who was groaning, clutching his face. You brought this on yourself. Brian tried to push himself up, shaking his head like he was trying to clear the stars. You can't just hit me like that, he slurred. Oh, I can, I said, my voice dangerously low. And I will. And if you don't get your sorry ass off my porch in the next 10 seconds, I'll make sure you don't leave here in one piece. Maria turned to me, her eyes blazing with fury. Nathan, you're acting crazy. This isn't like you. I laughed bitterly. Oh, I think this is exactly like me. You just never thought you'd see it directed at you. Brian finally stumbled to his feet, wiping blood from his split lip. You're a psycho, he spat, his voice shaking. Call it whatever you want, I said, stepping closer, making sure he understood the weight of the situation. You come near Maria again? You so much as look at her the wrong way. You'll be leaving in a body bag. Brian held up his hands in surrender and backed away. Screw this. She's not worth it. With that, he turned and practically ran to his car, speeding off into the night. Maria turned back to me, her eyes still blazing. You had no right to do that. I shook my head. And you had no right to betray me. But here we are. She exhaled sharply, running a hand through her hair. I made a mistake. I crossed my arms. You made several. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No sadness. Just exhaustion. I don't want to lose you, Nathan, she whispered. We can fix this. I let out a humorless chuckle. There's nothing left to fix, Maria. I already filed for divorce. You'll be served tomorrow. Her face crumbled. No, please, let's talk about this. We can go to counseling, we can... I held up a hand. Stop. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them. She opened her mouth again, but I wasn't interested in hearing another lie, another excuse. I stepped past her, into the house, and shut the door in her face. I stood there for a moment, listening to her muffled sobs. Then, finally, I locked the door and walked away. By morning, Maria was gone, her things packed and removed. I didn't know where she went, and frankly, I didn't care. A week later, I got a call from Brenda. Nathan, you're going to love this, she said, her voice practically dripping with amusement. Oh, I leaned back in my chair. Do tell. Well, Brian's still recovering from that beating you gave him. But here's the kicker, he's got amnesia. Doesn't even remember what happened to him. I smirked. How convenient. Yeah, well, I told him he fell off the roof, Brenda said with a chuckle. And he believes it. I couldn't help but laugh. Good. Let him live in blissful ignorance. Oh, and one more thing, Brenda added. I filed for divorce. And I'm taking him for everything he's got. I grinned. Now that is music to my ears. Brenda sighed, her voice softening. How about you? You holding up okay? I thought about it for a second. The anger, the betrayal, the pain. It was all still there. But for the first time in a long time, I felt free. I think I will be, I admitted. That's good, Brenda said. You deserve that. We chatted for a bit longer before hanging up. As I sat in the quiet of my house, I took a deep breath, letting it all sink in. My marriage was over. The betrayal was behind me. And for the first time in years, I could finally move forward. Maybe one day, I'd open my heart again. Maybe not. But for now, I was content with the silence, the peace. And that was enough. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this. See you next time.